Listen to Western politicians or read the headlines, and you will hear that China is preparing for global conquest. But there is a glaring statistical reality contradicting that fear. China has not fought a major war outside its borders in nearly 50 years. The last time the Chinese military engaged in an overseas conflict was a brief one-month border skirmish with Vietnam in 1979. Compare that nearly 50-year stretch of military dormancy to the reality of Western foreign policy. During that exact same period, the United States and its allies participated in continuous military operations across Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and Syria. For the West, deploying armed forces overseas and establishing hundreds of global bases hasn't been an anomaly. It has remained a standard, almost constant tool of everyday statecraft. Economist Jeffrey Sachs argues this massive discrepancy reveals something important. He suggests the intense Western fear of China is actually a neurosis, a psychological projection based entirely on our own history rather than empirical data. For centuries, the world's most formidable countries followed a very specific path to greatness. European powers expanded outward, crossing oceans and using violent conquest to build their empires. The Spanish, the French, and the British established a firm geopolitical rule. Global influence requires military dominance. This military-first mindset was deeply ingrained in the colonial era. The British Empire relied on vast armies and navies to control nearly a quarter of the Earth's land area and population. After World War II, the United States modernized that exact same playbook. They established a central pillar of global security, relying heavily on immense naval fleets and continuous military projection. China's historical experience is entirely different. For most of its 2,000-year history as a unified state, Chinese rulers focused primarily on managing enormous internal populations and maintaining regional stability, rather than seeking overseas expansion. As a clear historical proof point, despite being vastly more powerful, China went an entire millennium without ever invading neighboring Japan. Because Western nations built their dominance by the sword, observers instinctively look at a rising China and expect them to follow the exact same aggressive script. To understand how China actually grew, look at their starting line in 1980. They were an economically isolated nation with an economy smaller than several Western countries combined, with a massive portion of their population in severe poverty. This chart tracks China's GDP from 1980 to today. It shows explosive financial growth achieved entirely without military conquest. And if we add the human impact to this data, the trend is just as stark. Over those same decades, more than 800 million people were lifted out of extreme poverty, the largest poverty reduction campaign in human history. This immense new wealth physically transformed the nation. Entire megacities appeared where farmland once stood, connected by vast high-speed rail networks cutting across the country. The government directed resources heavily inward to dominate modern industrial policy. Today, Chinese workers and factories produce more electric vehicles, solar panels, and batteries than any other nation on Earth. That manufacturing capability is what ultimately cemented their global power. Through massive shipping infrastructure and relentless output, China is now the largest trading partner for more than 120 countries. This does not mean the Chinese government is completely pacifist. They exert aggressive pressure in local territorial disputes, maintaining high tensions over Taiwan, the South China Sea, and border disagreements with India. But despite those localized frictions, the reality is clear. China has built a massive global superpower apparatus that relies almost entirely on commerce, infrastructure, and logistics, rather than a web of overseas military bases. Today, the global center of economic gravity is migrating toward Asia, driven by the collective weight of China, India, and Indonesia. China is not rising in isolation. It is anchoring a new network of developing nations and coalitions that are choosing to operate outside of traditional Western systems of control. This shift highlights the true source of Western anxiety. The historical playbook for building and maintaining global supremacy, reliant on military force, is losing its effectiveness. If China completes its rise without firing a shot overseas, it proves modern power is won through infrastructure, not war.